CARICOM condemns the inclusion of some member states in new EU blacklist. CARICOM chair calls for global dialogue on debt restructuring as countries grapple with economic fallout from COVID-19. And CARICOM monitors elections in Suriname. These and other stories are in the CARICOM NewsTime for the week ending Friday, the 22nd of May. I'm Tusankin English Francis. Thank you for joining us. The Caribbean community says recent blacklisting of 4 member states by the European Commission is not in keeping with the collaborative and supportive relationship between CARICOM and European states. A statement released on Monday, May 19th by the CARICOM Secretariat says the countries were neither informed nor consulted prior to this month's publication of the list of countries with strategic anti-money laundering, combating the financing of terrorism deficiencies. The community notes one member state was delisted by the Financial Action Task Force since February 2020. The other 3 had already entered into agreed action plans with the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force. The statement says CARICOM member states continue to demonstrate their commitment to strengthening their anti-money laundering and combating financing of terrorism frameworks. The community also maintains its call for a uniform, fair, and transparent assessment process that is based on an inclusive and multilateral framework. Chair of CARICOM, Prime Minister Mia Mottley has called for dialogue on debt obligations of middle-income, small island developing states in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. Addressing the 73rd session of the World Health Assembly via video conference on the 18th of May, Prime Minister Mottley said such dialogue will avoid crisis both in borrowing countries and within the global financial markets. The CARICOM chair reiterated her call for a global leadership initiative rooted in moral leadership. She also reaffirmed CARICOM's position on the need for SIDS to access concessional development financing based on their vulnerabilities and not GDP per capita.
We need a global leadership initiative that is rooted in moral leadership, more so than ever. Moral leadership that will finally recognize that the use of historic per capita income to determine access to concessional funds or grant funds, or indeed, as I mentioned earlier, to determine fair access to the procurement of goods is unacceptable. Even when our circumstances deteriorate, there has been no review that takes into account the inherent vulnerability to which we are exposed and which prevents us from being able to access critical money or goods. In addition, the use of certain proxy criteria to access technologies, medicines, vaccines, or concessional funds and grants would exclude vulnerable countries such as ours in the Caribbean, some in Latin America, and even in the Pacific. Why? Because we are using criteria that are more relevant to fighting problems that have little or no relevance to our current vulnerabilities and challenges.
A CARICOM election observation mission monitored general elections in Suriname on Monday, the 25th of May. In response to a request by the government of Suriname, CARICOM fielded a 4-member mission to the Dutch-speaking member state, led by Ms. Dora James, Supervisor of Elections of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The team monitored the opening of poll, the voting process, the closing of the poll, and the counting of the ballots. Jamaica has recorded the largest number of patient recoveries from the coronavirus in a single day. In his digital press conference on the 20th of May, Jamaica's Health and Wellness Minister, the Honorable Christopher Tufton, said 14 persons were cleared of the virus, a small victory as the country implements a 5-pronged strategy to flatten the curve of infections on the island. Meanwhile, Prime Minister of Jamaica, the Honorable Andrew Holness, in a recent interview with CNN's business editor Richard Quest, said Jamaica is preparing for the inevitable reopening of the economy, of which tourism is an essential element.
You need healthy people to make the economy work, and a working economy gives you healthy people. So for us as a government, we're trying to ensure that we balance these two very critical objectives. And tourism plays a very important role in that. As you outline the figures, we depend heavily on tourism. Tourism is our number one foreign exchange earner, accounting for over 50% of the foreign exchange that we earn. So we have to start planning from now for the reopening and recovery of the industry. So we have to plan in advance and anticipate when our largest tourism market would be ready for us. What we would want is for the United States to be ready, Canada to be ready, Europe to be ready, and we are not. So we're preparing. You know, the tourism industry is very susceptible to global shocks. And this would not be the first global shock that our tourism industry would have. And indeed, within the Caribbean countries, we are already very much aware and sensitive towards these global shocks. So we are resilient.
Deputy Chief Medical Officer of Guyana, Dr. Karen Gordon-Boyle, has warned Guyanese to redouble their efforts to ward against the coronavirus as the country recorded over 35% asymptomatic cases.
Your temperature may be normal, but that does not mean that you are not infected with the coronavirus. You should note that over 35% of our COVID-19 cases were actually asymptomatic, had no typical signs or symptoms such as fever, cough, shortness of breath, etc. So even if your temperature is normal, you have to continue to behave as if you have the virus. So you must continue to wear your mask, wash your hands frequently, maintain physical distancing, stay at home, and immediately report to the COVID hotline should any symptoms arise.
Assistant Secretary General within the Directorate of Human and Social Development, Dr. Douglas Slater, has called for actions to foster more ecosystem-based solutions to address biodiversity loss, climate change, and land degradation simultaneously. As CARICOM joined the global community in celebrating International Day for Biological Diversity on May the 22nd, Dr. Slater reiterated the need for mainstreaming biodiversity in economic sectors and working together at all levels to build a future in harmony with nature. While the community has been fully engaged in the COVID-19 response, Dr. Slater said it was necessary to observe the day to mobilize political will and resources. It is also necessary to increase awareness and understanding of biodiversity issues. He says the CARICOM Secretariat, along with partner organizations, view this year's observation as an optimal opportunity to promote the need for urgent action at the highest levels, in support of a post-2020 biodiversity framework that will contribute to reshaping the Caribbean region's vision for biodiversity. For these and other stories, you can visit the CARICOM news site at today.caricom.org or the CARICOM website at caricom.org. Like our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Be safe and see you next time.